Moving on to application, agenda item 5E, 890 El Camino Real, a request for a conditional use permit and architectural review permit to allow the expansion of an existing skilled nursing facility per chapters 1296 110C and 12-108-10 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you. As stated, the applicant is proposing an expansion to the existing skilled nursing facility. It's located at the corner of El Camino Real and Euclid, and those are narrow blocks at that location, so it's also bounded by Hensley on the other side. The site is approximately 30,400 square feet. The existing building is 9,908 square feet and was built in 1962. There's been very few changes to the building since that time. To talk a little bit about the services that they do provide there, since this type of use is not before us very often. In fact, I'm not sure if at any time since 1962 we've seen an application like this. They provide nursing care, and they provide physical, occupational, and speech therapy. So we did have a discussion with them early on about, is it a hospital? Because their name includes that word hospital. But based on the services that they provide, they are not a hospital, as defined in many various government codes and sections, as well as our municipal code. Their current capacity is 45 people. The application before you, they propose to expand to be able to care for 51 people. So they're proposing an expansion of 3,490 square feet. It's proposed near the corner of Euclid and Hensley. And I will ask the applicant to explain a little bit about some of the unique restrictions that are on these types of facilities and how that impacts where an addition can be placed and what kind of changes can be made to a building. So I'll ask the applicant to do that, as he's more of an expert in that area. But it does influence how the design has been laid out, as well as the site. So the addition includes capacity for 6 new beds, as I've mentioned, a physical therapy room, offices, conference room, and a new nurses station. So the application is really about keeping up to date with the needs of the people that they are serving, as well as doing a small increase in capacity. The design of the addition is intended to blend in with the existing building, which is somewhat plain or nondescript in its architectural style, but then also to provide a transition to the adjacent residential neighborhood. So as such, it's designed as a 1-story stucco building, with the tallest point being 17 feet 6 inches, which is similar to the height of some of the houses that are 1-story, split level, and 2-story in the adjacent neighborhood. They're proposing aluminum windows that do have some architectural detail in the size and proportion of those windows, and those windows are also recessed quite deeply in most cases, so that does provide some light and shadow in a building that otherwise is somewhat simple in its architectural appearance. They've included some decorative lighting as well. With the project, they would change the parking lot configuration somewhat. They would close the curb cut, which is on Euclid Avenue. It is substandard today and not well used in staff's observation. They would propose a new curb cut on Hensley that would be compliant with today's code. They would actually reduce the number of parking spaces, but they are proposing 18 fully compliant spaces. The spaces that have been out there in the drive aisles are not fully compliant with the code today. And it would include new landscaping around the addition, which has quite a bit of architectural interest, and in the rendering that you received, it does reflect the plant choices and kind of the color and scale of that landscaping. The Architectural Review Committee reviewed the project on June 16th. Staff had made minor recommendations. Those have been implemented in the plans that you have in front of you, in large part, so we'll just go over those briefly. We recommended a new sign at the entrance on the south elevation, because it's kind of a new main entrance to the building. They have included that on the revised plans. We asked them to explore the possibility of a monument sign towards the corner, because people will be coming around the corner and will need to know that this is the place to turn in. They have included that on the plans, as well as landscaping that will emphasize the new front entrance. They've agreed to repaint the entire existing building as well. There was some discussion at Architectural Review about lighting and about some green building measures. The The applicant has requested that we defer those two items to the time of building permit submittal. Staff does feel comfortable with that because those are items that would normally be considered at the time of construction detail. And so what we've asked them to do is to create a lighting plan, a photometric plan, that will show the parking lot and exactly where the lights will, how big they will light the parking lot. We want to ensure that the parking lot is safe, but also not overlight the project since there are residential houses directly across the street. So staff would be reviewing that at the time of building permit submittal. We also had a request that they consider the possibility of installing solar panels on the site. There are some limitations, construction limitations, on installing them on the existing building. So the request to consider them on the new building. So staff will be asking the applicant to prepare some materials and to submit those to us at the time of building permit submittal to explain why or why not solar panels may be feasible at that location. So that takes care of the Architectural Review Committee recommendations. It was an overall favorable recommendation forward to the full Planning Commission. Staff sent a courtesy notice to adjacent neighbors on May 23rd, as well as a legal notice on July 8th. We did receive one phone call from a property owner just today, and he reported to staff that sometimes he does notice that employees park on the street instead of always in the parking lot. So staff would like to add a condition of approval tonight, a new condition number 19, requiring that employees park in the parking lot and not in the public street. And since this business operates at multiple hours of the day and they have a range of the kinds of professionals that work there, and perhaps some of those employees may turn over more frequently, some of the aides and assistants, we would like to add to that condition that they make it a requirement as part of their new employee training. So whatever packet they give to new employees, we would like there to be a statement in there that employees should park in the parking lot instead of on the public street to anticipate the fact that this use could be there for quite some time and we don't want to create any problems over the years. Staff would also like to point out a unique aspect of this project as a skilled nursing facility. It is like a hospital in that it is not subject to our local building code authority. So medical buildings are subject to a state authority for building code, and that is the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development, OSHPD. So we've heard of it, but we haven't frequently seen it implemented in our projects. So what that means is that OSHPD will do the plan check, the building inspections, and the certificate of occupancy, not our own building division. So this is unique for us because, as you well know, our conditions of approval are normally tied to the building permit and to the final inspection of the building permit and the certificate of occupancy. So considering that, we do have several unique conditions related to this project. So I would like to go over those since those are different than what we're used to seeing. So conditions of approval are on page 7. And starting with condition number 3, this is quite unique. We are requesting that the applicant make a deposit of $5,000 to the Community Development Department to ensure that all conditions of approval are met. The use permit and architectural review permit would not be valid until this deposit is made. Once the project is complete and all the conditions are met, the Community Development Department would refund this deposit in full to the applicant. So this is insurance, if you would, to make sure that they comply with all the conditions of approval. Number 4, this is somewhat obvious, but a new condition for us, considering this kind of project. They must comply with all OSHPD requirements. Condition number 6, they still must secure a building permit for the work that is not covered by OSHPD review. So staff has been in contact with the OSHPD staff, and as we understand it, OSHPD will review all elements of the actual building footprint, things that are attached to the building that are used for medical purposes. Other aspects of the site still fall into our purview and review. So they would need to get a building permit that covers those things. So that, as we understand it, would include the trash enclosure, the ADA parking, the monument sign, and anything else that may come up along the way.
That would be, just for information, water, wastewater, and sewer hookups, or water, sewer, and let's see, what was the other one?
Yes.
yeah.
So they're still required to get an encroachment permit, they're still required to analyze their water and sewer service,
Right.
and they're still required to do any upgrade that may be required for the expansion of the use. So
And
yes, thank you.
We'd be checking on their, the water supply being sufficient for fire code. Well, not our fire code, but wouldn't there be some check?
Yes, there is some overlap, and staff has started that conversation with OSHPD, but we will continue it between planning, engineering, building, and their staff to make sure that the utilities line up. This does seem like something that needs further discussion as we go through the project.
Okay,
But we are asking
sorry to
them.
interrupt.
No problem. We're
I just-
expecting them to do kind of a concurrent review, and that's the way we've listed the conditions of approval. I do understand that the OSHPD review can be quite a bit longer than ours, so we've tried to structure the conditions knowing that that's going to drive the timeline and not our review process. The other thing I wanted to note is that condition number 7, as you know, we always have a pre-construction meeting for commercial and residential projects. What we've requested that they do is that once they've gotten through their OSHPD plan check review, to then come back and schedule a meeting with us, look at the plans that are approved by OSHPD, and make sure that everything is lining up. So the building permit required from us, the building permit required from OSHPD, the conditions of approval from the Planning Commission, all of those things need to come together. We'd like that time of the pre-construction meeting to be the check. So in conclusion, after all of that, staff does recommend approval of the project. We find that the project would provide a needed service in this community. Demographically, the needs of these kinds of services are increasing in our city and everywhere because of demographic shifts. The project is designed to transition into the adjacent residential neighborhood and is considerate of those residential neighbors. It does meet the parking requirements of the municipal code, increases the appearance of the rear parking lot and the landscaping adjacent to the residential neighbors. So we recommend approval based on findings of fact 1 through 10 and the conditions of approval 1 through 18 in the staff report, with the addition of the new condition 19 that I discussed about employees parking on site and including that information in training materials. So I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any commission questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Johnson.
On regarding the OSHPD regulations, was that driven because it's a hospital?
Yes, as I understand, their requirements apply to hospitals and skilled nursing facilities.
So there would not be the impact of board and care homes?
No, board and care homes that are in residential houses are under separate regulations, and we review those.
Department of Social Service, community care licensing, yes. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Through the chair.
Commissioner
We had one
Biassiatti.
item in architectural review that I don't see mentioned here, and that's we had asked the applicant to repair and paint the fence and clean up the landscaping a little bit along El Camino. Has that been addressed at all? Or is that
not-
included in like painting the building comment?
It is not addressed, and it should be. So thank you for pointing that out. At architectural review, we did discuss repairing the fence. It is a residential style wood
Right.
fence, I think would be a good way to describe it. It could stand for a little bit of repair. The landscaping, I've included a condition of approval in regards to landscaping maintenance. So we would expect to see a higher level of maintenance in the future than what we've seen there in the past for landscaping, including that area and the public right-of-way between the sidewalk and the property line.
Right, because it's on El Camino, it is very visible. Okay.
Thank you.
Chair,
Commissioner Chase.
I think I sat in that ARC review meeting as well. And if memory serves me right, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that the applicant told us then that the fence and whatever the signage in the front was not in their purview. And, you know, am I mistaken on that? I thought we had that discussion, and maybe I'm thinking of something different, but I thought.
We had two related discussions at architectural review. So there's limitations about making changes to the physical building, so the applicant can address that in his presentation. In regards to the fence, we did talk about making some changes to the fence. And as I recall the discussion, the applicant rightly pointed out that in their initial submittal to us, they had a dramatic change to the fence and to the landscaping. And in working through the design, staff did not ultimately recommend that approach to the fence for a variety of reasons. But we did talk about changes along the way. This project has been in development for quite some time.
Right. There was something about wasn't connecting or something with the fence in the building, but I guess when the applicant gets up there, he'll make it all clear.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for the staff report. Now I'd like to ask the applicant, open the public hearing and ask the applicant to step forward. Give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Steve Kiki. I'm the architect with MSW A&E Services. The address is 3551 Pegasus Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Thank you, Commission, for hosting us tonight and hearing my project. I've gone through the staff report and want to thank Laura also for the hard work she's done over the course of this project. And we have no exceptions to the staff report. And I'll just take this opportunity to clarify a couple things. Commissioner Chase, I think one of the issues was the fence, which actually there is an item in one of the conditions dealt with graffiti, and I think that was what was actually mentioned. There was one little bit of graffiti on the north face along Euclid on the fence. Otherwise, the fence is not in terrible repair, but it does occasionally get a little bit of graffiti. One of the reasons we didn't do the dramatic change to the front was because the hedge is, I don't know, chest high, and the fence is not much higher than that. And really the landscaping is what keeps the fence from getting graffitied more. Because our dramatic change in design had a lot more graffiti surface. And I think that was, again, the condition that did turn up in the staff report addressed graffiti, but I think it was mainly about fence maintenance as well. One of the other issues that was mentioned was the delicacy of adding an addition to a building that was built in 1962 and has to meet OSHPD requirements. Obviously, the seismic and wind and all kinds of regulations have changed since 1962. So the problem we face today is if we were to do anything to that building built in 1962 or to any degree, it would all have to be brought up to current code. There's really not much of a way to do that except to scrape it and start over. So the only way we make this project work is to completely structurally stand off of the existing building with our new building. So there'll be a 2 or 3 or 4 inch seismic separation, whatever the structural engineer determines. So the corridors and the circulation system will connect. It'll work like one building, but from a structural and physical and building department view, it will be 2 separate buildings. So that was also part of the question with the solar panels. When we looked at putting solar panels on there, obviously we can't really load anything on the existing roof, so we're limited to the new roof for any potential solar applications. And while I'm on that subject, I will address where I'm at with that at this point as well. I've talked to several different solar companies about the panel situation on that roof. And the one hiccup or uncertainty at this point is any facility like this, we have emergency power. So when the big storm hits and the power goes out like that, our type of facility, the power has to come on just like that as well. So that's the issue right now with the solar panels, is how we interface solar panel use with a building that is completely dependent on emergency power at times, and how we do the switching over and the segregating so that we don't end up with a situation where the solar's functioning and feeding, and wham, we switch to emergency power. They're not really certain of that yet. So we're doing the homework, and we'll submit the study prior to getting a building permit. Outside of that, I don't know that there were any other questions.
Okay, very
Or
good.
issues. If anyone has a question of me, feel free.
Any commission questions? Commissioner Johnson?
Through the chair. Yes, just basically the painting, if you can just clarify a bit more on, I see the new building, it looks very nice, and thank you for submitting the renderings. The existing building, will that be freshened up and?
Yeah, it will be done up to blend in with the existing, or the new. So it will be completely repainted, and all that accents will be repainted. So there'll be a little bit of accent color on the coping at the top of the wall and some things like that. So.
And also in the staff report, they mentioned a sign on the corner. Is that something that you're going to be?
Yeah, the design of the building as it stands now, the building kind of tucks in at the corner, so there's really a good opportunity, and I thank staff for recommending it, to put a monument sign on that corner that will kind of sit at a 45, so it can be seen from just about every direction, and we have room for it. We'll certainly participate in the design of that sign and making sure that it's architecturally compatible with the other things we're doing.
Well, it'll be great to see the finished project, because it's certainly, as time goes on, freshness is good, and
Yeah.
thank you for submitting these
Thank
good
you.
reports.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? I have a couple items. One, my understanding is that facility has an outstandingly positive record, and I wondered, as the architect, did you get into the business aspects at all?
Not in this particular facility, but I'm doing 9 other different projects for the same ownership group, and they own, I don't know, 7 or 8 in the Bay Area, most of them in the East Bay. They own several in Southern California and developing some new ones. We're currently in the planning loop in Fremont with a 4-story, 62-bed, very high-end facility of the same nature. I wish you were the planning commission in Fremont. But if you can go online and you can rate these facilities, and I was
Right.
surprised to go through and see that, fortunately for me, my client has very good ratings in every community, and in fact, typically the only good ratings. I mean, almost all of them, it's on the various different websites that rate these places, and that one is a state-run website, so they just relate their infractions and their write-ups for this and that and things like that. Others are user-oriented websites where it's families and people that are, commenting. So it is very refreshing to see a group that, because so many of these, I mean, the majority of them, it's mostly negative comments and report cards.
I was
as
very
well.
happy to see that, and because of that, it's great that it's going to be freshened up.
Yeah.
My other question is about the structure of the existing. Do you have any reason to believe that it's in good enough condition to weather an earthquake at all?
We actually have a summary and review done by a structural engineer. I think it dates to '09, and I don't remember the exact wording of that. I would say, just based on what I know about simple wood frame structures, that you have pretty good sections of solid wall, and then the windows are kind of large, but they aren't extra large, and the ratio of wall to window, there's a lot more wall than there is window. So being a simple wood frame structure, I would say that that's probably going to, in one story, that's going to be pretty sound in an earthquake. That's not to say, built in '62, it probably didn't have all the hold downs, all the hardware, all the tie-ins from the wall to the roof structure, and that's really where it's just substandard, and there's just no way to really calculate it, for what was done, what sits there today. I'm sure the engineer that designed it then calculated, maybe that would be the way to do it, to go back and review their calculations, but at any rate, I'd have to revisit that structural review we have, and we'll submit that, obviously, or can submit that to the city for their review as well.
That's a fair answer under the conditions. What I would like to recommend to you, and I'm not recommending this as a condition, but as a practical matter, I'm sure you would be able to do termite work without opening it up to a review by OSHPD.
Yeah.
And I'd like to recommend that very heartily to you, simply because, number one, it's highly likely that there are some issues there, And whatever issues you find when you do that remedial work, it'll make the structure that much better able to stand an earthquake. Because I agree with you, as from my structural knowledge, single family or single story buildings, wood frame, do a good job of standing up to it. The other observation I have would apply both to the existing and the new, and that is, since you're going to, and this is an potential energy savings, I suspect, you could do it two ways. You could do it with regular glass and coating, or you could do it with the new energy glass that reduces the transmission of heat and ultraviolet light. I suspect that it would both save you energy by reducing the heat load on that building, and also make it easier on your staff and patients, because anytime people are in the rays of the sun, they can get pretty warm. Then you'd either have to keep the windows closed or blinds or something like that. So this is just a recommendation that you look into glass that resists energy transmission one way or another, simply because it can so dramatically affect your energy cost and make it more comfortable. And that's about all I have. I think it's a great project. I think it's something the community needs, as well as your business owners, so it looks great. Any other commission questions? Okay, chair's open for a motion.
Through the chair?
Oh, wait. First, I have to close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the commission. Excuse me. Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
If there is no further discussion, I'm happy to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve use permit 10-005 and architectural review permit 10-003 based on the findings of facts 1 through 10 and subjects of condition of approval 1 through 18. Were there any additional?
19.
19, that's right. 19. And that condition was?
That was the
parking, over the employee parking.
Second.
And there was also a mention of a fence repair, but I think that's been addressed, so I think it's just the parking. Okay, is that your motion?
That is my motion.
Is there a second?
There is.
Commissioner Chase, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and there's a 10-day appeal period. Thank you.